Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the fundraising process, what fundraising is looking like in 2025, and how to actually navigate a successful process. My name is Max Goldberg. I'm a two-time exited startup founder who's raised several $1,000,000 for my own businesses over the last 5 years, and have helped my clients raise over $10 million for their own startups. To start, I want to go over what a fundraising process typically looks like for a pre-seed to seed stage startup company. Several of the clients we work with range from they haven't raised any money before to their first price round, which would be a Series A. And in 2025, it's more important than ever before to be really focused on, one, how much capital do you really need to raise to get to that next level of growth and to get to that next fundraise? And number two, before you start a raise, it's very important to think about how you're going to deploy the capital. Because capital is more expensive with higher interest rates, investors are just demanding more. Many startups are raising large rounds at crazy valuations, mostly for ego-driven reasons. They want that feature in TechCrunch, or they think they know where they're going to deploy that capital to get a return. Being someone that's already raised, a substantial amount of money, I know that a lot of plans go to shit. So I think it's more important now than ever before to go into a fundraise with a clear understanding and expectations of what you're going to do with the money. Now, there's also the possibility that you raise a bunch of money not knowing what you want to do with it just yet and sit on it as a reserve base. So when you build a scalable, repeatable growth or sales engine, or you need to hire that engineer that builds out a specific piece of your business, you have that capital ready to go. Now, regardless of how you're planning to use the capital, if you were to raise the money, how likely is that you achieve the milestones that you've set out? And a milestone shouldn't be build product with AI tools like Cursor and Windsurf and, creating a product, essentially becoming something people can do in a weekend. Think relentlessly about how they'll scale to 50, 100K, 250, 500K, $1 million in ARR or revenue, and focus more on that traction and how capital can unlock that traction. Now, taking a step back, when you are looking to raise money, you're only supposed to raise money for one thing. Capital, or dollars, is fundamentally the blocker for you to achieve certain milestones. Capital should be deployed to increase revenue or to unblock whatever is holding back you from achieving more revenue. Primarily, raising money, you are supposed to show investors that capital is the true blocker. Capital is the key to unlock that next level of growth or success for your business, no matter what that looks like. Specifically with the fundraising processes today, generally founders should expect to spend several months, anywhere from 2, 3, 4 months to get a round done and to get into oversubscription territory. Now, as a founder, there's a sort of timeline in what to expect when you go to raise money from VCs, family offices, ultra high net worth individuals, and so on. You should be gearing up to fundraise, preparing, practicing your pitch, iterating on your deck, at least 2-3 months prior to knowing you need that money. The biggest mistake, our clients and prospective clients make is coming and approaching to us when they're already ready to go and raise that round, or they are in need of the capital tomorrow. But that's a really poor way of thinking about fundraising. Instead, founders should be thinking, okay, if I need to go and raise money in 3 months, I should be starting my fundraising preparation now so that I can get my data room together. I can iterate on the pitch deck. I can get dozens and dozens of mock pitches in, build my ideal investor list, and subsequent outreach materials. So founders should really gear to spend, 60 or so days preparing for the raise exclusively before going to market. Because the worst mistake you can make is to be unprepared on the call with a venture capitalist. They're asking for materials that you just don't have optimized yet, or you don't have them at all. And you want to avoid that situation as much as possible. In terms of what a founder should expect their life to be like during a fundraise, my Techstars MD told me that when you are fundraising as the CEO or founder of a company, you should more or less quit your company. And by that, he means you're not going to be able to be involved as you once were on the day-to-day operations, scaling, building, etc. You really have to communicate to your team early that you will not be active in the day-to-day operations of the business. Fundraising in itself is a full-time job. And as a CEO of a company, one of your two core responsibilities, other than attracting and retaining talent, is to never let the company go bankrupt. And in order to let the company stay solvent and stay capitalized, you have to prioritize fundraising and make it your number one priority. A question I often get is how many investors you should be looking to speak to in a round to get something done. And generally, a good rule of thumb is you should never rule out having to speak to 100 investors. I didn't have to speak to 100 investors. Most of my clients have never spoken with 100 investors and are still seeing that success. However, a good number to think about is there are so many funds out there. If you speak to 100 out of the thousands of funds that are in the United States and around the world, that is really a good number where if you're not successful by that point, you probably need more traction. You probably need more help optimizing your deck, your pitch, your fundraising materials, and so on. But I think in reality, clients have spoken to anywhere from 5, 10, 15 investors and have been able to get a bulk of the capital of their round subscribed. When you are dealing with investors, it's key to align yourself with their own model, their interests, the incentives the investors have. Different investors all have different criteria over what they're looking for, the timeline they're looking to invest on, as well as the holding period or how long they're expecting to work with a company before it reaches the point of an IPO or some sort of exit or acquisition later on. So really aligning yourself with who are the types of investors that I'm reaching out to, and then specifically looking at the background of doing your homework of the specific investors you're going to reach out to get a better understanding of what it is they're looking for. And once you know what they're looking for, you're going to be better equipped to deal with rejections. A lot of founders who are rookies to fundraising hear something like, hey, so-and-so, we really appreciated getting to know you, but unfortunately, we only invest when there's a lead investor in place. A very common rejection. Now, it's important as a founder for you to know how to actually overcome those objections. What does an investor actually mean when they say that? Do they really want to lead, or is there more traction or conviction that they're looking for? Do they want to see another investor come on board to de-risk their own investment? Whether that's rational or not, there are all sorts of objections you might get from VCs, and knowing which ones are really credible and others where you can push back and get to the root cause is really important. And why folks work with myself and my colleague Michael to get their round done. We've heard all the objections and we're pretty good at overcoming them, or at least coming to some sort of consensus of what the actual reason is, and then how do we overcome that hurdle. Now, I spoke a little bit about what life looks like during a fundraising process, but there are several intricacies of the fundraising process that many founders, especially first-time founders, don't really consider. I think number one, again, is the preparation. Having all your ducks in a row before you go to fundraise is the single best move you can make as a startup founder. Thinking about fundraising as a sales process is arguably the best feedback I could provide you or any other startup founder who's raising for the first time. When you work on a pitch deck, you're going to send investors your deck with an email, ideally to get connected to a VC or an angel, etc. The whole point of that deck and that email is only to get meeting one. Your step one is to get the meeting and do whatever you can to get those intro meetings with investors. Whether that be cold outreach, which is not really effective, whether that's working with someone like Gold Capital Consulting, Michael and myself, the whole point of your preparation is to get meeting one. Once you get on meeting one, you're going to pitch, you're going to tell a compelling story. Your goal is to just get meeting two. It's not to get a one-call close. The chances of you raising money after one call is extremely rare. It's a lightning in the bottle moment. Your goal of that first call is to get call two. Then your goal of call two is to get call three. And ideally at that point, the investors have either asked for more information, they've clearly indicated interest in coming into your round, they're asking for your data room and your diligence items to really get their head around if this makes sense or not. How do you know if an investor is actually interested in what you're saying? First and foremost, they should be listening to you. They should be actively involved, asking questions, smiling, reacting, even confused, having real emotional reactions to what you're saying. It means they're leaning in. It means they're trying to understand. It means they're trying to build that conviction and see if your business is ripe for their investment. And at that point, it's the founder's job to recognize, well, what is the missing information that they don't have that they're looking for, or what is holding them back? And the best thing you can do is listen, not talk. And when you do talk, ask really good open-ended questions to get the investor to talk. Try to figure out what's holding them back. And if it's something that you believe either you could explain better or achieve, whether they're looking for certain traction you do not currently have. That is a great situation to be in, and there are plenty of tactics we teach our clients to overcome these sort of objections, get a soft commitment, and give the investor both the time and cushion or buffer to keep waiting a little bit while giving you a commitment to then go and leverage that and raise more money from other investors. What are some secret meanings, behind certain investor questions? And by this, I mean there are certain questions that investors may word as skepticism or, lack of conviction. They can't get behind, your investment at this point or your company. And they're sometimes asking questions when they really are interested, but they're trying to discreetly get some more information from you. Typically, these sorts of questions revolve around the round dynamics, meaning what investors are in the round. When they ask that, they're trying to build more conviction through other investors' conviction, right? If other professional investors are getting there and putting money into your business, there might be something, that they're missing, or B, they might not have to do as much due diligence work on their own to get there because some other investors have done that before. Number two, they'll ask a lot about your traction. And I think this is the thing that scares founders the most. They think they never have enough traction. No traction's ever enough. And although no traction will ever be enough because you're building a business that hopefully continues to scale over time, having a wait list of a couple hundred people, having even 100 users of an app that have paid, a couple dollars to use or using it, multiple times a week or month, that is traction. So the whole point of investors asking about traction is to see if you are able to execute. Almost anyone can come up with an idea, but very few people can execute and create real results. So when you have traction, whether you think it's limited and abysmal or you think you have a lot, tell the story of that this traction is meaningful, and here's why. Some of the most important psychological factors with fundraising is FOMO, fear of missing out, scarcity, and greed. And the reality is that all investors invest solely predicated on greed and greed alone. They're not doing this as for charity. They're not just doing this because they like you, even though they probably do like you if they decide to invest in your business. But ultimately, they're looking to create a return for themselves and their limited partners, their investors. So whenever you tell the story, when you're going over a slide, like a competition slide, most founders are scared. We have no competition. That's never true. You always have competition. It's 2025. So when you have this competition slide, while most founders think this is something they should shy away from or quickly go through, instead have the mindset of, if there are strong competitors, new competitors, existing competitors that have substantial revenues or have raised a bunch of capital, that is a good sign and something you should share with your investors. Because it shows two things. One, it shows there's a market where capital is willing to come in and inject money into the business to help them grow, so investors feel more comfortable also investing in growth. And number two, it shows that there's a willingness to pay from customers in your industry.
And there you have it. If you have any sort of questions about what was brought up in the video or you want to get in touch with me, leave a comment below. I'll be reading each and every one of them and responding to you all. Now, if you're a startup founder who's looking to get your raise done and you want to skip the trial and error, the cost, the time it takes to put together a round, I do work with a select group of startup founders to help them get their raise done faster with warm introductions and in a way where you're actually learning how to do the fundraise yourself. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, click the link in the description below and apply and we'll be in touch. Thank you very much. Like, comment, and subscribe.